Once at a public reading, someone asked the poet Robert Frost why he so often recited his poems from memory. His response? If they won't stick to me, I won't stick to them. How many of us, even those who haven't read him since elementary school, remember lines from The Road Not Taken or Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, even if it's just from TV and movies?
Robert Frost said, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference.
Nothing go can stay.
Huh? We get off the highway, take the road less traveled, you know? Robert Frost. Doesn't seem like a smart idea.
What is it then that makes his poems so memorable? Jay Perini, poet and Frost biographer, says in Robert Frost's 16 Poems to Learn by Heart that what Frost hoped to do was capture the sound of sense, as he called it. That is, he wanted his poems to go to the heart of what makes for memorable language. He expected his readers to listen to his poems and recognize in their cadences the natural sounds of human conversation. We wanted to put this to the test by asking a handful of Library of America staff and friends, poets, actors, editors, musicians, bibliophiles, to try their hand at memorizing an entire Robert Frost poem and documenting their progress over the course of a week. At the end, we asked them all to recite the poems from memory and to talk about their experiences. Here's how it went.
I will be reading The Sound of Trees.
After apple picking.
I picked Reluctance.
Mowing.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. And I had to say that really carefully because I have trouble just remembering the title.
I feel like Frost would have been one of those poets I would have appreciated more, like, had I encountered him, like, not through, like, my middle school English class.
I have this collected Frost at home that might be one of the first poetry books I ever bought for myself.
What happens every once in a while is that kind of colloquial, everyday language becomes the setting for some absolutely gorgeous, devastating line.
I like to take walks in woods. And so this is how I'm going to be remembering his poem is in woods, in spring woods.
Song lyrics get memorized almost automatically when I'm listening to a song I love or singing along. And so I actually thought to myself this weekend, I wonder if I should try to, fake set this to music so I can memorize it easily.
I feel like I did like quite a bit of like memorization like through theater. And I think I used to be a lot better at it, like, but my brain is not the same.
Continual repetition. I don't think there's any shortcut to it. I think that, it's doing it to the point where it becomes, second nature.
My usual thing is to write it out on index cards and keep them in my pocket, like when I'm on the subway, so I can pull them out.
I do think a poem changes location when you memorize it.
You're kind of sitting intimately with someone else's like consciousness or someone else's thoughts, and that's kind of traveled through time.
It kind of gets into you in a way that reading doesn't.
It's going to be a challenge.
In 16 Poems to Learn by Heart, Perini shares a handful of tips and techniques for memorization. Everybody's brain is different, so what might work for some people won't work for others. But here are a few things you can try. 1. Make the practice part of your routine, even if you only spend 10 or 15 minutes a day on it. 2. The classic. Read aloud and repeat. 3. Type the poem into a Word document without looking at the original. 4. Use the mind palace technique to visualize the lines and stanzas. Here's what Perini says about the mind palace. Visualize each line of the poem, or rather a keyword in it, as an object in a room, so that as you recall these objects from left to right, each line will return to you. Our memorizers definitely ran the gamut in terms of their approaches. Let's see how that turned out for them.
This is day one of my memorization journey.
Okay, this is take one, trying to get the first 3 sentences.
Today is the first day that I have been working on memorizing Reluctance. Okay, putting the card down.
Not without feeble pointed spikes of flowers, pale orchises, and scared
Why do we wish to bear forever the noise of these, more than any other noise, so close to our...
Whose woods these are, I think I know. That I do.
I wonder about the trees. Why do we wish to bear forever the noise of these?
Essence of winter night. Essence of winter sleep is on the night.
Day 2, trying to work through a stickier part of the poem today.
Didn't look at the poem at all yesterday, so I'm feeling a little rusty. The leaves are all dead on the ground, save those that the oak is keeping out over the crusted snow when others are sleeping. Got it.
Magnified apples appear and disappear. Stem end and blossom end. Okay, progress. I got some more lines to go.
The hay whispered and left my scythe to make. Yes, my long scythe whispered and left the hay to make.
I'm here in woods on a rainy afternoon with my companion, Phoebe. Phoebe, hi. So here goes. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Whew.
I'm out for a walk today trying to add the second stanza to the poem. This one seems harder. There's less repetition and less of a sort of mental map I can make. Looked at the world and descended. I always screw up there. And let them go scraping and creeping. Oh no, that's as far as I can get.
Try number 3, when they are in voice and tossing so as to scare the white clouds above them on. I shall have less to say, but I shall be gone.
Not without feeble-pointed spikes of flowers, pale orchises, and scared a bright green snake.
I started working a couple days ago on the third stanza and immediately started getting it confused with the second stanza because they both start with a line about dead leaves.
The hay whispered and left my scythe to make. My long scythe whispered and left the hay to make.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep. I think I'm ready to recite the poem.
For the grand event, all our readers got together to try reciting their memorized poems. Choosing the order at random, we started with After Apple Picking.
My long two-pointed ladder's sticking through a tree toward heaven still. And there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it, and maybe 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night. The scent of apples. I am drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the water trough. It melted, and I let it fall and break. But I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of the ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap as of no worth. It is easy to see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it is like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep.
I wonder about the trees. Why do we wish to bear forever the noise of these over any other noise so close to our dwelling place? We suffer them by the day till we lose all measure of pace and fixity in our joys and acquire a listening air. They are that talks of going, never gets away, and that talks no less for knowing as it grows wiser and older, that now it means to stay. My feet tug at the floor, and my head sways to my shoulder sometimes when I watch trees sway from the window or the door. I shall set forth for somewhere. I shall make the reckless choice someday, when they are in voice and tossing so as to scare the white clouds above them on. I shall have less to say, but I shall be gone.
There was never a sound beside the wood but one, and that was my long scythe whispering to the ground. What did it whisper I knew not well myself. Perhaps it was something about the heat of the sun, something perhaps about the lack of sound, and that was why it whispered and did not speak. It was no dream of the gift of idle hours, or easy gold at the hand of fay or elf. Anything more than the truth would have seemed too weak to the earnest love that laid the swale in rows. Not without feeble pointed spikes of flowers, pale orchises, and scared a bright green snake. The fact is that the sweetest dream that labor knows, my long scythe whispered and leapt the hay to make.
Out through the fields and the woods and over the walls I have wended. I have climbed the hills of view and looked at the world and descended. I have come by the highway home, and lo, it is ended. The leaves are all dead on the ground, save those that the oak is keeping, to ravel them one by one and let them go scraping and creeping out over the crusted snow when others are sleeping. And the dead leaves lie huddled and still, no longer blown hither and thither. The last lone aster is gone, the flowers of the witch hazel wither. The heart is still aching to seek, but the feet question whither. Ah, when to the heart of man was it ever less than a treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with a grace to reason, and bow and accept the end of a love or a season?
Whose woods these are, I think I know. Wow, I don't perform, it seems. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound this sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Reading one of his poems, even out loud, when it's on this external thing called a page or a screen, I can appreciate it to a certain level and even deeply appreciate it as one of Frost's truths. But in memorizing it and internalizing it and taking it into my own body and then generating it back, it's like I'm sharing an aspect of my own personal truth.
In memorizing it, I was more struck by certain formulations or turns of phrase that seem like they're common or almost idiomatic, and then they're not. In those kind of strangenesses where you pause, like I think a lot of meaning comes out of that.
You know, it forces you to listen to the tone of voice as it's moving through the poem. You know, this ordinary businessman saying suddenly the woods are lovely, dark and deep, or this apple picker who's, you know, saying, you know, essence of winter sleep is on the night. You know, it's not something you expect an apple picker to say.
This is how I memorize things, is having like little flags that I can follow to remember what comes next. And so I kept having to find different things in each stanza to help myself. You know, the leaves go low and then they go high on the tree and then they go low again. The last few days, whenever I've been on a walk, I've suddenly found those lines about dead leaves popping into my head.
All of these poems that people read have a new meaning for me because of the way that you said them. So I have a strong sense that the act of memorization made these poems more meaningful for all of us.